The Secret of the Noblewoman and the Commoner. In the year 1762, when the cold autumn wind swept through the hills of Vermont, a remote village surrounded by silver rivers and dark forests, the name Lydia de Valcourt was known by all. Daughter of Duke Henri de Valcourt, lord of vast lands and immense fortune, Lydia lived confined within the stone walls of her father's castle, surrounded by mirrors that reflected not the beauty she truly possessed, but the one society cruelly denied her. She was a woman of generous figure, of ample body and gentle soul, and for that she became her father's greatest shame. The Duke, a man of iron heart and steel eyes, saw his daughter not as a blessing but as a blemish upon his noble blood. No suitor from the high houses would marry her despite the enormous dowry offered, and with every refusal, the Duke's pride burned deeper. Whispers filled the corridors of Valcourt Castle that the Duke blamed his late wife for leaving him a daughter unfit for noble lineage. Lydia grew up hearing words sharper than any blade. "You are the punishment heaven sent me." But sometimes, a punishment is only the beginning of a miracle. In the same region lived Elias Moreau, a humble blacksmith of rough hands and honey-colored eyes. He was known throughout Vermont for his honesty, his strength, and his quiet dignity. He owned almost nothing, only a small wooden house inherited from his father, and a heart too large for the world that surrounded him. One grey afternoon, the Duke summoned Elias to the castle. The young man, puzzled by the call, obeyed. He climbed the stone steps under the cold gaze of guards, unaware that fate awaited him inside, disguised as cruelty. "Elias Moreau," the Duke said in his deep, disdainful tone, "I have heard you are an honorable man, though poor." "I do what I can, my lord," Elias replied humbly. The Duke turned toward the window and stared across the golden fields. "I have a gift for you, or perhaps a punishment." Elias frowned. "My daughter," the Duke continued, "Lydia shall be your wife." The blacksmith froze. "Your Grace, I don't understand." "It's simple," the Duke interrupted coldly. "No noble will take her hand, so I shall give her to one without title, without wealth, without name. Let her learn humility in the arms of a peasant." Behind a curtain of velvet, Lydia heard every word. Her heart shattered in silence. It was not a marriage, it was a sentence. But when she stepped into the room, her eyes wet and her hands trembling, Elias saw something that no one else ever had. Beneath her tears and shame, he saw grace, quiet, wounded, but pure. "If it is your will, my lord," Elias said softly, "I will take her, but not out of obedience. I will take her because every soul deserves to be loved." The Duke laughed, cruel and bitter. "Then may the gods have mercy on you." The wedding took place days later, without guests, without music, without joy. The nobility whispered, the peasants mocked. The blacksmith and the whale, they called them in the taverns. Elias ignored them. He led his bride to his small house by the river, where the ceiling was low and the floor uneven, and there began a life neither of them expected. At first, silence lived between covered in soot, and his voice trembled. "You saved me after what I did to you. Why?" Elias looked him in the eye. "Because a man repays evil not with hatred, but with honor." Lydia ran to him, wrapped her arms around him, and kissed his sooty face. The crowd, silent until then, witnessed something that silenced all cruelty, love that defied every measure. In the following months, everything changed. Elias's forge grew busier than ever. His craft reached noblemen across provinces. With Lydia's wit and kindness, they built not only wealth but respect. Lydia herself transformed. Once timid, now radiant. She wrote recipe books, taught poor women to read, and laughed often. Elias would tell her every night, "When your father gave you to me, I thought heaven was testing me. Now I know it blessed me beyond measure." A year later, the Duke fell ill. On his deathbed, he summoned Lydia and Elias. His once firm voice trembled as he reached for his daughter's hand. "Forgive me, my child. I tried to punish you for what I could not understand. You are more noble than I ever was." Lydia wept, but smiled through her tears. "Father, forgiveness waited for you long before you asked for it." That night the Duke passed away, leaving the Valcour lands to Lydia. But Elias refused to live as a lord. Together, they transformed part of the estate into a refuge for orphans and the sick. The people began to call them the true nobles of Valcour. They lived humbly, though surrounded by abundance, and their names became legend throughout the region. Years passed, seasons turned. On warm evenings, the villagers often saw them walking hand in hand through the meadows, whispering to one another as though the world were made only for them. It was said that when love is true, it heals even those who merely witness it. When Elias died of old age, Lydia ordered his gravestone to bear the words he once told her. "To love you was never a duty. It was the privilege that gave meaning to my poverty." She lived on, caring for the children of the refuge, teaching them that love's worth is not measured by beauty or birth. And when her heart finally stilled one spring morning, the village of Vermont filled the streets with flowers. They did not mourn a duchess, but a woman who had shown the world that love, once planted, never dies. To this day, the castle of Valcour still stands, covered in ivy and thyme. And some say that on foggy nights, two silhouettes can be seen walking among the gardens. A broad woman and a strong man, hand in hand, laughing softly as they once did. Because in the end, what began as punishment became miracle, and the poor man who loved her became the richest of all, not in gold, but in heart.